Admiral Daniel Pierce stood at the viewing port of the transport ship and watched Nexus Prime grow larger in the darkness of space. The massive station hung in the void like a silver wheel, its curved sections gleaming under the light of distant stars. Beside him, Ambassador Corinne Mitchell studied the data pad in her hands, reading through briefing documents for the 20th time that day. "They call it the center of galactic civilization," Corinne said quietly, "home to representatives from 300 species." Daniel nodded but said nothing. His eyes tracked the ships moving around the station. Sleek alien vessels of every shape and size docked at the outer rings. Some looked like living creatures, all curves and organic lines. Others were blocky and mechanical, covered in armor plating. None of them looked like the human ships that followed behind the transport. "Our escort makes them nervous," Corinne continued, glancing at him. "The Council sent 3 messages asking why we brought warships to peace talks." "And you told them," Daniel asked. "That humanity likes to be prepared." Corinne smiled slightly. "They didn't press the issue after that." The transport began its final approach to the docking bay. Through the viewport, Daniel could see figures waiting on the landing platform. Tall ones, short ones, some with too many limbs and others that seemed to float rather than stand. The welcoming committee for Earth's first official visit to the Galactic Council. 6 months had passed since first contact. 6 months since a Council scout ship stumbled across human transmissions and decided to make themselves known. The aliens presented themselves as peaceful explorers who wanted to welcome humanity into the galactic community. They spoke of trade, cultural exchange, and mutual prosperity. Earth's governments, still reeling from the revelation that they were not alone in the universe, had cautiously agreed to talks. The transport touched down with barely a shudder. Corinne straightened her formal jacket and checked her reflection in the polished wall panel. Daniel adjusted his uniform and made sure his service pistol sat properly on his hip. The gesture did not go unnoticed. "Do you really need that here?" Corinne asked. "I really need it everywhere," Daniel replied. The airlock cycled open and they stepped out onto the platform. The air smelled strange, like ozone mixed with something sweet and chemical. A group of aliens approached, led by a tall reptilian creature in flowing robes. Its scales were deep green and its eyes were golden with vertical slits for pupils. "Welcome, humans, to Nexus Prime," the creature said in perfect English. "I am High Counselor, Chairman of the Galactic Council. We are pleased you accepted our invitation." Corinne stepped forward and extended her hand, looked at it for a moment before carefully grasping it. His grip was cold and dry. "Thank you for hosting us, Counselor," Corinne said. "Earth is honored to be here." Of course," gestured to the others behind him. "Allow me to introduce my colleagues. Senator of the Trade Federation, Ambassador of the Aquatic Alliance, and General, Commander of our peacekeeping forces." Each alien stepped forward in turn. Senator resembled a giant mantis with too many eyes. Ambassador looked like a cross between a fish and a person, with scales and gills visible beneath a breathing apparatus. General was shorter than the others but powerfully built, with skin and tusks jutting from his lower jaw. "Your fleet remains in high orbit," General said. His voice was deep and rough. "Is this standard human protocol?" "Standard precaution," Daniel answered. "Nothing more." His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more. Clapped his hands together, a gesture that seemed rehearsed for human benefit. Come, we have prepared quarters for you and your staff. Tonight we feast in your honor, and tomorrow we begin our discussions." He started walking toward a corridor, and the humans followed. "I must say we have been watching Earth with great interest. Your transmissions reach far into space. Your entertainment programs are quite popular among some species." "I hope they give an accurate picture of humanity," Corinne said carefully. "Oh, very much so," Senator buzzed. "Such passion, such emotion, your species feels things so deeply. It is admirable in its own way." Daniel caught the subtle condescension in the insect's tone. Admirable in its own way, as if they were children being praised for a simple drawing. They walked through the station's corridors for nearly 15 minutes. Aliens of every description filled the halls and most stopped to stare at the humans. Some seemed curious, others suspicious. A few looked amused, as if seeing something unexpected and entertaining. The quarters assigned to the human delegation were spacious and well-furnished, though clearly designed for beings of different proportions. The beds were too short, and the chairs too wide. Coren's team immediately began setting up their equipment while Daniel excused himself to check on the security detail. He found Commander Lisa Hayes in the corridor outside, reviewing sensor data on a portable terminal. "Anything unusual?" he asked. "Define unusual, sir," Lisa replied. "I'm reading weapon systems that make our best gear look primitive, shield technology we can't even classify, and that's just what they're showing us." "What about what they're not showing us?" Lisa looked up from her screen. "That's what worries me. There are entire sections of this station that aren't on any map they gave us. Power readings suggest massive military installations, but officially this is just a diplomatic facility." Daniel considered this. "Keep monitoring and tell our ships to stay alert." "Already done, sir." That evening, the Galactic Council held a grand banquet in the humans' honor. The main hall was enormous, with a domed ceiling that showed a holographic view of space. Hundreds of aliens filled the tables, representing dozens of different species. The humans were seated at a table on a raised platform where everyone could see them. The food was exotic and mostly unrecognizable. Corinne picked at her plate politely while engaging in small talk with Ambassador. Daniel sat beside her, watching the room and noting exit points. After the meal, High Counselor stood and raised a glass filled with glowing liquid. The room fell silent. "Friends and colleagues," he began, "tonight we celebrate a momentous occasion, the arrival of a new species to our community. Humanity comes from a world they call Earth, a small planet in what they call the Orion Arm. They are young, as civilizations go, curious and energetic like all young species." Polite applause rippled through the crowd, smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Tomorrow, we will present them with a great opportunity, the chance to join our community officially, to benefit from our collective wisdom and protection. The Treaty of Compliance has served 47 species well over the centuries. I have no doubt humanity will embrace it with the same enthusiasm." Coren's hand tightened on her glass. Daniel kept his expression neutral, but his mind was racing. Treaty of Compliance, not Treaty of Alliance or Partnership, compliance. Raised his glass higher, to humanity and to their bright future under Council guidance. The aliens drank, the humans did not. Later, back in their quarters, Corinne threw the data pad across the room. It bounced off the wall and clattered to the floor. "Compliance," she said. "They want us to comply, not cooperate, not partner. Comply." Corinne Mitchell read through the treaty for the third time, and with each reading it became worse. The document sat on the table before her like a coiled snake, its polite language hiding teeth and venom. "Article 7, she read aloud to her assembled team. "All military vessels and installations beyond the home system must be transferred to Council authority within 6 standard months." Commander Lisa Hayes shook her head. "They want our entire deep space fleet, every ship, every station, every outpost." "Article 12, Daniel Pierce continued, picking up where Corinne left off. "All technological developments must be shared with the Council Technical Committee for review and approval before implementation." "Which means they get everything we invent," said Timothy Morgan, Earth Science Advisor, "and they decide if we're allowed to use it." Corinne flipped to another page. Article 21. Earth agrees to accept a council garrison of no fewer than 50,000 personnel, stationed at locations to be determined by the Council Military Command. "An occupation force," Daniel said flatly. "They're calling it a garrison, but that's what it is. 50,000 alien troops on Earth with authority to enforce Council law." "And Article 28, Corinne added, her voice tight with anger. "Earth will provide annual tribute in raw materials, manufactured goods, and currency as determined by the Council Economic Board. Failure to meet quotas will result in sanctions and possible intervention." The room fell silent. Outside the windows, Nexus Prime glowed with lights from thousands of ships and stations. The heart of galactic civilization, they called it. To Corinne, it suddenly looked more like the center of a vast empire. "It's not just us," Lisa said quietly. She pulled up a holographic display showing a star map. Red dots scattered across it like drops of blood. "I've been digging through their public records. 47 species have signed treaties like this. Every single one followed the same pattern. First contact, peaceful overtures, invitation to the council, and then this." "How did they all agree to it?" Timothy asked. "Most didn't have a choice," Lisa replied. She pointed to one of the red dots. The Confederacy refused. The Council blockaded their home system for 2 years until they surrendered. The Praxis Union tried to negotiate better terms. Council forces occupied their 3 major colonies until they signed. She looked at Karen. The Council has a standard procedure for dealing with new species. Make friendly contact, assess military capability, and then present the treaty. Species that sign get to keep their independence, on paper at least. Species that refuse get crushed. Daniel stood and walked to the window. His reflection stared back at him, superimposed over the endless black of space. They've been planning this since first contact. Before that, Lisa corrected. According to their own files, they've been monitoring Earth for decades, watching our broadcasts, analyzing our culture, studying our military capabilities, or what they think are our capabilities. Karen looked up sharply. What do you mean? Lisa smiled, but there was no humor in it. They've been watching our entertainment broadcasts, our news programs, our public communications. They think they know everything about us based on what we transmit into space. But we don't broadcast classified military information on public television. How much don't they know? Karen asked. Everything that matters, Daniel said. He turned from the window. They see our cargo haulers and civilian transports. They've tracked the dozen escort ships we brought here. They know about our defensive installations in the solar system, but they don't know about the rest. Timothy leaned forward. You mean the Deep Space Fleet? Among other things, Daniel replied. The Council intelligence is good but not perfect. They're used to species that develop openly, that broadcast everything they do. Humanity learned a long time ago to keep secrets. Karen stood and paced the room. We need to contact Earth Command, get authorization for our next move. Already done, Lisa said. She pulled up another screen showing an encrypted message. I sent a full report through the quantum relay 3 hours ago. This came back 20 minutes later. Karen read the message. Her eyebrows rose. They're giving us full discretion to reject the treaty. And authorizing military action if the Council responds with force, Daniel added, reading over her shoulder. Earth Command isn't backing down. They can't, Timothy said. If we accept this treaty, humanity becomes a client state. We'd never be free again. Karen sat down heavily. 6 months ago, Earth learned it was not alone. 6 months ago, humanity celebrated first contact with joy and wonder. Now she sat in an alien station, reading a document that would effectively end human independence. What happens when we say no? She asked quietly. Daniel and Lisa exchanged glances. Lisa brought up another file on the holographic display. Based on their historical patterns, they'll give us time to reconsider, maybe a few days. Then they'll apply pressure, economic sanctions, military posturing. If that doesn't work, they'll issue an ultimatum. And if we refuse the ultimatum? Then they send the fleet, Daniel said. The Council enforcement fleet has crushed every species that refused to comply. They have thousands of ships, advanced weapons, and centuries of military experience. Against our 50 ships in this sector? Timothy said nervously. Daniel smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Against everything we brought. Karen looked at him. How many ships do we actually have here, Admiral? That's classified, Daniel replied. Then he glanced at Lisa, who nodded. But since you're the ambassador leading these negotiations, I suppose you should know. We have 58 visible ships, transports, escorts, cruisers, all properly registered with the Council and tracked by their sensors. And invisibly, Karen asked. 312 warships currently running dark with full stealth systems. Another 150 in reserve 1 jump away, Daniel said calmly. Earth Command didn't send us here hopping for the best. They sent us here prepared for the worst. Timothy's jaw dropped. You brought almost 500 ships to peace talks. We brought them to what we suspected might be a trap, Daniel corrected. And judging by this treaty, we were right. Karen walked to the window and looked out at the station. Somewhere in this massive structure, High Counselor and his colleagues were probably celebrating. They thought they had humanity cornered, thought they knew everything about the primitive species from Earth. They were in for a surprise. When do you want to tell them? Daniel asked. Karen checked the time. The Council scheduled our response session for tomorrow at noon station time. We'll tell them then. They won't react well, Lisa warned. No, Karen agreed. They won't, but they need to understand something. Humanity didn't come to Nexus Prime begging for acceptance. We came as equals. If the Council wants peace, they'll get peace. But if they want war, they'll discover we're very good at that too. That night, Karen couldn't sleep. She lay in the too-short bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what tomorrow would bring. Somewhere in the galaxy, Earth rotated peacefully, its people going about their lives unaware that their future hung in the balance. She thought about her daughter back home, 7 years old and fascinated by the stars. What kind of galaxy would that little girl grow up in? One where humanity stood proud and free, or one where they bowed to the Council's rule? Karen knew what her answer would be. She'd seen too much of Earth's history, read too many accounts of people who chose freedom over safety, who fought rather than submit. Humanity had spent thousands of years learning a simple lesson. Liberty was worth defending, no matter the cost. The Council thought they knew humans from watching broadcasts. They saw the emotions, the conflicts, the drama, and concluded that humanity was passionate but naive, young and impulsive, easy to control. They had no idea what humans were capable of when threatened. They hadn't learned the most important lesson from Earth's history. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. They survived because they adapted, because they fought, because they never surrendered. Tomorrow, the Galactic Council would learn that lesson, and Karen suspected they wouldn't enjoy the education. The council chamber was designed to impress and intimidate. The circular room rose 5 stories high, with viewing galleries where hundreds of species could observe the proceedings. At the center sat the council's inner circle, 12 representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Their seats formed a ring around a small platform where petitioners stood to address them. Karen Mitchell walked to that platform with steady steps. Behind her, Admiral Daniel Pierce and Commander Lisa Hayes followed. Above them, the galleries filled with alien observers, all eager to witness humanity's submission. High Counselor sat in the largest chair, his reptilian features arranged in what might have been a smile. Senator clicked his mandibles together in a gesture Karen had learned meant anticipation. Ambassador watched through his breathing apparatus with cold fish eyes. General leaned forward in his seat, his tusked jaw set in satisfaction. Ambassador Mitchell began, his voice echoing through the chamber. Have you reviewed the Treaty of Compliance we provided? I have, Karen replied. Her voice was calm and clear. And have you consulted with your government? I have. Spread his hands in a gesture of openness. Then let us proceed. The treaty is standard, used successfully by 47 species before you. It ensures Earth's protection and integration into our galactic community. All we require is your signature, and humanity can begin its bright future under Council guidance. Karen looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. Some watched with curiosity, others with bored indifference. This was routine for them, a formality they'd witnessed dozens of times before. A new species would stand where she stood now, realize they had no choice, and sign away their freedom. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, Karen said clearly, I reject this treaty. The chamber erupted. Gasps and shouts filled the air in a dozen different languages. In the galleries, aliens jumped to their feet, pointing and chattering. On the council platforms, golden eyes widened in shock. You reject it, he repeated, as if unable to believe what he heard. I reject it completely and without reservation, Karen confirmed. The treaty you presented is not an agreement between equals. It is a surrender document. Earth will not surrender its sovereignty, its military, or its freedom. Senator's mandibles clacked together rapidly. You do not understand the opportunity we offer. The galaxy is dangerous for young species. The Council provides protection and guidance. We understand perfectly, Karen replied. You want to make Earth a client state. You want our resources, our technology, and our obedience. We decline. General rose from his seat. His skin flushed darker with anger. You cannot decline. Every species that comes before this council accepts the treaty. It is the price of admission to galactic civilization. Then perhaps we're not interested in your civilization, Karen said. Not if the price is our freedom. His composure cracked. His voice turned sharp and cold. You are being foolish, Ambassador. Earth is one small planet with primitive technology and limited military strength. The Council represents 300 species and commands thousands of warships. You have no leverage, no power, no ability to resist our terms. Are you threatening us, Counselor? Karen asked. I am stating facts, replied. If Earth refuses to join the Council peacefully, you will be designated a rogue state. Council space will be closed to you, trade will be forbidden, and if you attempt to expand beyond your home system, you will be stopped, by force if necessary. The chamber had gone quiet. Every eye watched the human ambassador standing alone on the platform. That sounds very much like a threat, Karen said. It is a consequence of your choice, said. The Council has dealt with stubborn species before. Some saw reason eventually, others required persuasion, all eventually. Admiral Daniel Pierce stepped forward to stand beside Karen. And if Earth doesn't comply? General smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Then the Council enforcement fleet will persuade you. We have crushed rebellions and conquered rogue states for centuries. Your handful of ships would not last a day against our full military strength. Our handful of ships, Daniel repeated. He looked up at the galleries, then back at the Council. You mean the 58 vessels you've been tracking since we arrived? Precisely, said. Adequate for a diplomatic escort, but meaningless against our forces. Daniel pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a simple communication pad. You know, that's the problem with your intelligence gathering, General. You're very good at tracking what you can see, but you never learn to look for what you can't see. He pressed a button on the device. Throughout the sector, 312 human warships dropped their stealth systems and became visible to every sensor in range. On the chamber's main display screen, a tactical map suddenly filled with blue icons representing human vessels. They surrounded Nexus Prime in a sphere of military might, each ship armed and ready. The chamber erupted again, this time in panic and confusion. Aliens shouted in their native languages. Counselors jumped from their seats. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Stared at the display screen. His mouth opened and closed several times before words emerged. Impossible. Where did they come from? They've been here the whole time, Lisa Hayes said, stepping forward. Stealth technology. We've had it for 20 years, but we don't broadcast that kind of information on public television. General was already barking orders into his communicator. All ships to battle stations, raise shields, charge weapons. Daniel watched the tactical display as Council ships throughout the sector began responding to his commands. Hundreds of alien warships moved into defensive positions. The Council might have been surprised, but they were professionals. Within minutes, they had organized a response force twice the size of the human fleet. You are outnumbered, said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Numbers aren't everything, Daniel replied. You know what else doesn't get broadcast on public television? Military specifications, weapon capabilities, tactical doctrines. He looked at. You've been watching Earth for decades, Counselor. You've seen our entertainment, our news broadcasts, our cultural exchanges. What you haven't seen is our weapons development programs, our military research, our war colleges. War colleges? Ambassador spoke for the first time, his voice bubbling through his breathing apparatus. What need has a species for institutions dedicated to warfare? Because Earth has never known true peace, Karen answered. For thousands of years, humanity has fought. Wars over land, resources, religion, ideology. We've refined the art of combat through countless conflicts. Our entire history is a story of war and survival. That is precisely why you need the Council's guidance, said, but his voice wavered. To overcome your violent nature. Our violent nature is exactly why you should reconsider your threats, Daniel said. Every advance in human technology was driven by military need. Faster ships to outmaneuver enemies, stronger weapons to defeat opponents, better shields to survive attacks. While your species achieved peace early in your development and stagnated militarily, we kept improving. Generation after generation, war after war. Senator's voice became high and buzzing with stress. You are bluffing. You would not dare attack this station. You would not dare fight the entire Council. We're not bluffing, Karen said. And we didn't come here to fight. We came hopping for honest peace talks, partnership between equals, but you tried to trick us into slavery. So now we stand here with guns drawn and you have a choice to make. What choice? Demanded. You can try to enforce your treaty with military force, Karen said. In which case you'll discover exactly how effective human weapons are, or you can sit back down and negotiate a real peace treaty, one that respects Earth's sovereignty and treats humanity as equals. The Council does not negotiate with threats, General growled. Neither does humanity, Daniel replied. Which is why we're at an impasse, so let me make this simple. We're going to return to our quarters now. You're going to discuss among yourselves what happens next, and tomorrow we'll meet again. But understand this, if you choose war, you'll get war, and humanity is very, very good at war. Karen turned and walked toward the chamber exit. Daniel and Lisa followed her. Behind them, the council chamber dissolved into chaos as counselors argued and shouted. In the corridor outside, Lisa let out a long breath. That went about as well as expected. They'll call our bluff, Karen said. Captain Stephen Brooks stood on the bridge of the human destroyer Resolution and watched the tactical display with careful eyes. Around his ship, 311 other human vessels held position in a defensive sphere around Nexus Prime. Beyond them, the Council enforcement fleet gathered like an approaching storm. Status report, Stephen said calmly. Lieutenant Sanders looked up from her weapons console. All systems green, loaded and capacitors at full charge, missile tubes ready, point defense grid active. We're ready for whatever they throw at us. Defensive posture only, Stephen reminded her. We don't fire unless fired upon. Understood, sir, but they're definitely preparing to fire. On the display, Council ships continued to mass. Stephen counted over 900 vessels now, with more jumping into the sector every few minutes. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts. The Council was bringing everything they had in the region. Commander Peter Grant studied his tactical screens. Their formation is standard Council doctrine. Heavy ships in front to absorb damage, lighter vessels in support, carriers in the rear to launch fighters. They're arranging for a frontal assault. Textbook tactics, Stephen agreed. Which means they've done this before and it worked. Against species without modern weapons, pointed out. Sir, their shields are old generation. Their weapons are energy-based with predictable output. Our simulations show we have a significant technological advantage. Stephen nodded but kept his concerns private. Advantage or not, they were still outnumbered 3-1. The Council had numbers and experience on their side. Humanity had better weapons and desperation. He hoped it would be enough. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, the communications officer announced. Put it through, Stephen ordered. General's tusked face appeared on the main screen. His skin looked darker than before, flushed with anger or anticipation. Human vessels, said formally, you are in violation of Council space protocols. You will power down your weapon systems and surrender for inspection. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war. Stephen stood and faced the screen. General, we are a diplomatic delegation operating with permission granted by the Council itself. Our weapons are for defensive purposes only. We have no intention of surrendering. Then you choose war, replied. Your stubbornness will be your destruction. The Council has defeated every species that opposed us. You will be no different. You're welcome to try, Stephen said quietly. His eyes narrowed. You face the greatest fleet in the galaxy with your primitive ships. You cannot win. Maybe not, Stephen conceded, but we'll make sure you remember fighting us. Cut the transmission. On the tactical display, the Council fleet began moving forward. All ships battle formation, Stephen ordered. Shields to maximum, weapons hot, rules of engagement, fire only if fired upon, but once we start, we finish it. Throughout the human fleet, captains relayed similar orders. Ships shifted into combat positions. Energy shields flickered into life, weapon systems armed and aimed. The Council fleet advanced like a wave of metal and fury. Their shields glowed with power, their weapons charged with deadly energy, 900 ships against 300. The outcome seemed certain. They're locking weapons, reported. Energy spikes across their entire line. They're preparing to fire. Hold position, Stephen commanded. Let them make the first move. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. Every officer watched their screens, hands hovering over controls, waiting for the moment. They're firing, shouted. Space lit up with weapons discharge. Energy beams lanced out from the Council fleet, thousands of them, creating a web of deadly light. Missiles streaked forward, trailing plasma. Particle cannons released their fury. It was enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. It struck the human defensive sphere and vanished. The point defense systems activated instantly. Automated targeting computers calculated trajectories faster than any living mind could process. Laser grids intersected incoming beams and dispersed them. Magnetic fields deflected particle weapons. Countermissiles launched and detonated warheads in space. The human shields absorbed what little got through without even flickering. On the Resolution's bridge, the crew watched in amazement as the massive Council barrage accomplished exactly nothing. "Damage report," Stephen called out. "No damage to any ship," Peter replied, checking his console twice to be sure. "Their weapons couldn't penetrate our point defense. Sir, our shields didn't even register the hits." Stephen allowed himself a small smile. "Return fire, only. Let's see what they do with kinetic weapons." His fingers flew across her controls. Targeting solutions locked, firing. The human fleet opened up as one. Mounted on every ship began firing solid projectile rounds accelerated to incredible velocities. No energy signatures to detect, no heat to track. Just metal moving at speeds that turned them into devastating kinetic missiles. The Council ships had never faced weapons like these. Their shields were designed to deflect energy weapons and radiation. Solid matter moving at relativistic speeds went through them like they weren't there. The first volley struck the Council front line. Shields collapsed instantly. Armor plating crumpled. Ships spun out of formation, leaking air and fluids into the vacuum. A dozen vessels went dark as their power systems failed. "They're scattering," Peter reported. "Their formation is breaking up." General's face reappeared on the screen. He looked shaken. "What are you using? What weapons are those?" "Technology older than your Council," Stephen replied. "We just made it better." The Council fleet tried to regroup. Their ships spread out, attempting to flank the human sphere. They fired again, this time concentrating their weapons on individual human vessels. The point defense systems handled it easily. The humans rotated ships to spread out the defensive load. Not a single human vessel took serious damage. "Missile launch authorized," Stephen ordered. "Fire pattern Delta." Human missile tubes opened across the fleet. Hundreds of missiles launched, each one carrying a microfusion warhead. They accelerated toward the Council fleet with perfect precision. The Council tried to shoot them down, but their defensive systems were designed for energy weapons and conventional explosives. The human missiles were too fast, too maneuverable, and carried warheads that didn't explode on impact. The missiles struck and detonated. Microfusion reactions created electromagnetic pulses that fried electronics and overloaded power systems. They didn't destroy ships, but they disabled them. One after another, Council vessels went dark and drifted helplessly. In 15 minutes, half the Council fleet was disabled. The other half fell back in disorder. "Cease fire," Stephen ordered. "Hold position." The human fleet stopped shooting. They maintained their defensive sphere around Nexus Prime, waiting. On his command chair, Stephen watched the tactical display. The Council fleet had retreated to a safe distance. Hundreds of disabled ships floated between the two forces, their crews alive but their vessels powerless. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Pierce on Nexus Prime," the communications officer said. Stephen nodded. "Put him through." Daniel Pierce's face appeared on a smaller screen. "Captain Brooks, status report." "We engaged the Council enforcement fleet as ordered, sir. No human casualties. Approximately 450 Council ships disabled, minimal loss of life on their side. The remaining vessels have withdrawn. We're holding position." "Excellent work. Stand by for further orders. We're in negotiations with the Council now." "Understood, sir." Stephen paused. "Admiral, they didn't stand a chance. Our weapons cut through them like paper." Daniel's expression was serious. "That's what happens when you spend thousands of years perfecting the art of war, Captain. The Council forgot that lesson. Today they remembered." The transmission ended. Stephen looked around his bridge at his crew. They were professional military personnel who had trained for combat their entire careers, but most had never actually fought before. Today they discovered that all the training, all the simulations, all the preparation was worth it. "Sir, sensors are picking up new contacts," Peter said suddenly. "Multiple jump signatures. Something big is entering the sector." Stephen leaned forward. "The reinforcements called for." "Bigger than that," Peter replied. His voice had gone quiet. "Sir, we're reading over 500 new contacts, capital ships. It's the Council Grand Armada. They brought everything." Looked at her captain. "Can we fight that many?" Stephen didn't answer immediately. He watched the tactical display as ship after ship appeared on the screen. The Council's full military might was arriving, enough ships to conquer entire star systems. "Get me Admiral Pierce," Stephen said, "and send a priority signal to Earth Command. Tell them the situation just got a lot more complicated." On the display, the Grand Armada organized itself into battle formation, thousands of ships filling the space around them. It was the most powerful fleet ever assembled, brought together for one purpose: to crush humanity's resistance. But as Stephen watched, another set of contacts appeared on his sensors. More human ships were jumping into the sector, responding to the emergency signal. These weren't the stealth vessels that had hidden around Nexus Prime. These were Earth's true military strength, the main battle fleet that had been waiting one jump away. The fleet was led by Fleet Admiral Moore on the dreadnought Valiant. As her ship, the Council chamber, fell silent as Fleet Admiral Moore entered. She wore her full dress uniform, medals from 3 different conflicts displayed across her chest. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had commanded warships for 30 years. Behind her, Admiral Daniel Pierce and Ambassador Corinne Mitchell followed. The entire Council had assembled for this emergency session. Every representative sat in their designated seats, but none of them looked comfortable. Through the chamber's massive windows, both fleets were visible: the Council's Grand Armada on one side, Earth's main battle fleet on the other. High Counselor stood slowly. His golden eyes were wide, his composure shattered. "You brought a fleet capable of fighting our entire military to peace talks. What were your intentions?" "The same as yours," replied. Her voice carried through the chamber without effort. "We came prepared for the worst while hopping for the best. The difference is that we actually wanted peace. You wanted submission." "This is madness," Senator buzzed. His mandibles clacked together rapidly. "No species brings a war fleet to diplomatic negotiations." "Humanity does," Corinne said. She stepped forward to stand beside. "Because we've learned hard lessons about trusting strangers. When someone invites you to peace talks, you hope they're sincere, but you prepare for them to be lying." General rose from his seat. His tusks gleamed in the chamber's light. "You have fought one small battle against a fraction of our forces. Do not think that victory makes you invincible. The Grand Armada has never been defeated." "Neither has Earth's main battle fleet," replied calmly. "Would you like to test which record breaks first?" Ambassador spoke up, his voice bubbling through his apparatus. "This is not necessary. Violence serves no purpose. There must be a way to resolve this peacefully." "There is," Corinne said. "You sit down, you throw away that treaty of compliance, and you negotiate with us as equals. No more tricks, no more threats, no more attempts at subjugation. Just honest discussion between sovereign powers." "The Council does not negotiate from a position of weakness," said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You're not in a position of weakness," said. "You have more ships than we do. Your weapons are proven and reliable. Your crews are experienced. This could go either way, and both sides would suffer massive casualties." She paused. "The question is whether you want to find out who wins or whether you want to choose a better path." Elder Historian spoke for the first time. The ancient being sat in a chair at the far end of the Council platform, almost forgotten among the younger representatives. His species looked vaguely reptilian, but was so old that scales had given way to something resembling stone. When he spoke, everyone listened. "I have lived for 812 years, said. His voice was soft but carried weight. "I have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. I have seen wars that consumed entire sectors and peace that lasted centuries. In all that time, I have never seen a species like humanity." "They are aggressive and dangerous," said. "They are survivors," corrected. "There is a difference. Most species in this council come from worlds that were kind to them. Abundant resources, stable climates, few natural predators. They evolved in comfort and developed peaceful societies early in their history. But humanity comes from a death world, a planet that tested them constantly with ice ages, predators, diseases, and disasters." He gestured toward the windows where Earth's fleet waited. "They survived by being adaptable, innovative, and yes, by being willing to fight. Every advance in their technology was driven by necessity. Every innovation came from need. While we grew complacent in our peace, they were tempered by struggle." "That does not give them the right to threaten this council," Senator insisted. "They are not threatening us," said gently. They are defending themselves. We invited them here under false pretenses. We presented them with a treaty designed to enslave them. We threatened them with our fleet when they refused, and now we act surprised when they show they can fight back. Sank into his chair. 47 species have accepted the treaty. The system works. Does it? Asked. Those 47 species are client states. They have no real independence. They pay tribute and follow our rules. Is that the galactic community we want? One based on domination rather than cooperation. It maintains order, Ambassador said quietly. Order is not the same as justice, Karen said, and forcing species into submission is not the same as keeping the peace. Walked closer to the council platform. Let me tell you what will happen if you force this fight. Our weapons will cut through your shields and armor. Your energy weapons will do minimal damage to our defenses. We've proven that already. In the resulting battle, thousands will die on both sides. Your Grand Armada might eventually wear us down through sheer numbers, but it will cost you dearly. She paused to let that sink in. And even if you defeat us here, what then? Earth still exists. Our shipyards still operate. Our weapons factories still produce. We will rebuild and we will come back stronger, and next time we won't come alone. What do you mean? Asked. There are 47 species under your boot, Karen said. How many of them do you think are happy about it? How many would join us if we offered them a real alliance instead of servitude? How many would fight beside us to overthrow the council's tyranny? The chamber erupted in angry shouts. Councilors jumped to their feet, shouting denials and accusations. But noticed that some of them, particularly representatives from the client species, remained silent and thoughtful. You speak of rebellion, growled. You would tear apart centuries of peace. You call it peace, said. Others might call it oppression. We're offering you a chance to avoid finding out which it is. Raised a hand and the chamber quieted. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Looked at Karen, who stepped forward. We propose a new treaty, one that recognizes Earth as a fully sovereign power with all rights and privileges that entails. No tribute, no surrender of military assets, no occupation forces. We control our own territory and make our own decisions. That is what we offer to council members, said. No, Karen replied. Council members have representatives who vote on policy, but the client species under the Treaty of Compliance have no vote. They have no voice. They simply obey. She looked around the chamber. We're proposing something different, a real alliance of equals, mutual defense, open trade, cultural exchange, but each species remains independent and free. The council would never agree to such terms, Senator said. Then you'll have your war, replied. And you'll discover that humanity is very good at war, better than you. Better than any species in this chamber, because we've spent our entire existence fighting. We've refined combat tactics through thousands of conflicts. We've pushed weapons technology to its limits and beyond. We're not the best at art or philosophy or peaceful development, but when it comes to warfare, we are the absolute best. The chamber fell silent again. The truth of her words hung in the air like a blade. General stood and walked to the window. He stared out at the two fleets facing each other in the darkness. I have commanded military forces for 60 years, he said quietly. I have won every battle I fought. Every species that opposed the council was defeated, but today, for the first time, I am not certain of victory. He turned back to face the chamber. I watched the engagement between our enforcement fleet and their forward vessels. Our weapons were ineffective, our shields were useless, our tactics were anticipated and countered. In 15 minutes, they disabled half our forces without destroying a single ship. They showed restraint and precision that I have never witnessed. He looked at. If they had wanted to kill, they could have massacred us. We don't want to kill, Karen said softly. We want to live in peace. We want to trade, to share knowledge, to explore the galaxy together. But we will not do so as slaves. We will not surrender our freedom for the illusion of security. Looked old and tired. If we agree to these terms for humanity, every other client species will demand the same. Perhaps they should have it, said. Perhaps the Treaty of Compliance has outlived its usefulness. The galaxy is changing. We can change with it, or we can be left behind. The council members looked at each other. Decades of policy, centuries of tradition, all hanging in the balance. Finally spoke. I propose an emergency vote to suspend the Treaty of Compliance system and negotiate new agreements with all species based on mutual respect and cooperation. All in favor. One by one, hands raised, not all of them, but enough. The vote passed. stood and approached the platform where the humans waited. He extended his hand to Karen. "It seems we have much to discuss, Ambassador. Real discussions this time." Karen shook his hand. "We look forward to it, Counselor." Later, as the human delegation prepared to return to their quarters, stood at a viewport watching both fleets stand down. Weapons powered down, shields dropped, ships returning to patrol patterns instead of battle formations. "Do you think it will last?" Daniel asked, joining her at the window. The peace considered. "Maybe. They understand now that we won't be pushed around. That's a start." "We gambled everything on this," Daniel said. "If they had called our bluff and fought, we might have lost." "It wasn't a bluff," replied. "We were ready to fight, ready to die if necessary, but we were also ready to find a better way." She looked at him. "That's the lesson they needed to learn. Humanity is capable of terrible violence, yes, but we're also capable of choosing peace when peace is possible. The difference is that we get to choose. We don't submit, we don't surrender, we don't bow. We stand as equals, or we don't stand at all." Karen joined them at the viewport. "Earth Command is sending congratulations. The President wants a full report." "Tell them the peace talks failed," said with a slight smile. "But we managed to start new ones, better ones." "What happens now?" Karen asked. "Now we negotiate," said. "Real negotiations between sovereign powers. It won't be easy. There will be disagreements and conflicts, but at least we'll face them as free people, not as subjects." She looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy stretching before them. Somewhere out there, Earth rotated peacefully. Its people went about their lives, unaware of how close they had come to war. Unaware that their fleet had faced down the greatest military power in the galaxy and won not through conquest, but through the simple act of refusing to surrender. The galaxy had invited humanity to peace talks expecting submission. Instead, they got a lesson in what humans truly were. A species that valued freedom above all else, that came prepared for war while hopping for peace, and that would stand their ground no matter what the cost. The Council had wanted to learn about humanity. Now they knew, and the galaxy would never be the same. In space, followed by hundreds of others, Stephen understood the Admiral's strategy. Humanity hadn't just come prepared for peace talks. They'd come prepared to fight the entire galaxy if necessary, and the Council was about to discover just how prepared they were. "It's not a bluff," Daniel replied. He looked at his communication pad. "Fleet reports all ships at combat ready. Captain Brooks confirms weapon systems hot and targeting solutions locked." "How long before they attack?" Karen asked. Daniel checked the tactical display. "General is assembling his forces now. I'd say we have 6 hours before they try something." "Then we have 6 hours to prepare," Karen said. She looked back at the chamber doors. "They think we're afraid. They think we'll back down when they show their fleet." "Let them think that," Daniel said. "Reality will be educational." Daniel picked up the pad and scanned through the document that had been delivered to their rooms. His jaw tightened as he read. "It's worse than that," he said. "This isn't a treaty, it's a surrender document.